When we went around the school asking people what does suffrage mean, a lot of responses we had received were starvation, suffering, excruciating pain, and actually a lot of hungers. But in reality, suffrage really means the right to vote. I mean, it's a shame that many people don't know what women went through before Lucretia Mott and Elizabeth Cady Stanton did to spark the women's suffrage movement.
The Seneca Falls Convention was the first convention for women's rights, which was planned and organized by Lucretia Mott and Elizabeth Cady Stanton. The people who attended the event discussed about how they wanted women to have equal rights. About 200 people attended this event, and around 40 were men. The Seneca Falls Convention took place on July 19th and 20th, 1848 in Seneca Falls, New York. The event was successful because it made women realize that they are people just like men, and they should be able to have civil rights and the right to vote. After the event, it helped people realize that women need rights and sparked the women's rights movement.
Prior to the Seneca Falls Convention, Lucretia Mott and Elizabeth Cady Stanton were both abolitionists that attended the World Anti-Slavery Convention in London. While they were there, Lucretia and Elizabeth were prohibited from the convention floor, and they were not allowed to speak because they were women. These ladies were attending the convention in hopes of fighting for the rights of enslaved African Americans during the conference. Men were allowed to speak, but women were forbidden from speaking or presenting. They then realized that something needs to happen immediately for women and their rights. This jump-started the need for a women's rights movement in the United States. Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Lucretia Mott were both active in reform movements. Mott was born in Boston, Massachusetts, and became a school teacher. She became interested in women's rights when she realized that she was making one half of what other male teachers were making. Her and her husband, James Mott, moved to Philadelphia and became active members with the Quakers. They traveled the country speaking about religion, peace, and the abolition of slavery. After attending a meeting of American Anti-Slavery Society, she founded the Philadelphia Female Anti-Slavery Society and became president of the organization. She then organized the Anti-Slavery Convention of American Women in 1837.
Elizabeth Cady Stanton grew up as the daughter of a lawyer and U.S. congressman. She spent most of her time studying her father's law books. She married a lawyer and abolitionist Henry Brewster Stanton. The part about wife obeying her husband was definitely left out of their wedding vows. Both her and her husband became active members of the American Anti-Slavery Society. Shortly after meeting Mott in London, she returned to the United States, traveling and speaking on the issue of women's rights. In 1848, both women helped spread petitions that led to the New York State Married Women's Property Bill. This allowed a law to be put into place that let married women keep their name and property that they brought to the marriage. The law also let the women keep wages they earned and retain guardianship of their children during a divorce.
The start of the convention. After the World Anti-Slavery Convention, Lucretia Mott and Elizabeth Cady Stanton teamed up with Martha Wright, Mary Ann McClintock, and Jane Hunt and decided to publish their convention announcement in the Seneca County Courier on July 14th. The announcement read as followed: a convention to discuss the social, civil, and religious conditions and rights of women will be held in the Westland Chapel at Seneca Falls, New York on Wednesday and Thursday, the 19th of July current. Commencing at 10 o'clock a.m. during the first day, the meeting will be exclusively for women, who are earnestly invited to attend. The public generally are invited to be present on the second day, when Lucretia Mott of Philadelphia and other ladies and gentlemen will address the convention.
On July 19th, 1984, about 200 women attended the convention at Westland Chapel. Elizabeth Stanton read over a treaty she called the Declaration of Sentiments and Grievances. This document is similar to the Declaration of Independence. The treaty contained the preamble from the Declaration of Independence. The treaty read, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights." They were trying to prove a point that all people should be equal, and why U.S. women should organize a petition for their rights. These women were a kickstarter to a new revolution.
During the second and final day, about 40 men attended. One of the men included an African-American abolitionist named Frederick Douglass. The Declaration of Sentiments and Grievances was signed by the Assembly. 12 total resolutions were passed at the Assembly, but one of them was vigorously debated against. 11 of the 12 resolutions focused on specific equal rights for women. The 9th resolution faced opposition because it declared, "It is the duty of the women of this country to secure to themselves their sacred right to the elective franchise." The right to vote faced a long debate, with Frederick Douglass siding with Elizabeth Stanton. The resolution eventually passed. In 1886, Frederick Douglass, Elizabeth Stanton, and Susan B. Anthony created the American Equal Rights Association. The purpose of the organization was to gain suffrage for all people. The group was disbanded 3 years later because of tension between women's rights activists and African American rights activists. Frederick Douglass once said, "I have never yet been able to find one consideration, one argument, or suggestion in favor of man's right to participate in civil government which did not equally apply to the right of women."
What the women and the few men stood for at the Seneca Falls is equal treatment of women, and that includes the right to vote. Women had little to no respect or rights. The Seneca Falls Convention was successful at bringing this issue forward. This was a stepping stone at giving women equal treatment and rights in the future. Following the Seneca Falls Convention, the public tore down everything that the convention stood for. Many women and men withdrew their support because of the media and the men's reaction to the convention. Regardless, the Seneca Falls Convention marked the beginning of the women's suffrage movement in America.
The media's reaction. The women's demands of rights shocked the media. Though 12 resolutions focused on education, sports, job training, equal wages, birth control, property rights, child custody, divorce laws, and lastly, voting rights. The media published some very hateful and horrid public ideas towards them. One editor thought it was the most insane and ludicrous farce. The Lowell Courier feared women's equality because the lords must wash the dishes, scour up, be put to the tub, and handle the broom. A few newspapers backed up the Seneca Falls Convention, and they used the newspapers to spread their ideas and support across the United States. The St. Louis Daily Reveal declared the flag of independence has been hoisted for the second time on this side of the Atlantic. The editor of Herkimer Freeman in upstate New York hailed women's rights as a great jubilee of the nation. Horace Greeley, editor of the New York Tribune, reflected the feelings of many people at that time. Although Greeley clearly felt uncomfortable with the idea of equal rights for women, he recognized the powerful wording in the Declaration of Sentiments. If Americans really believed in the idea that all men are created equal, they must give women the right to vote.
2 weeks later, a larger event took place in Rochester, New York. National women's rights conventions were held annually to focus on the increasing support for the women's civil rights movement. After many years of facing opposition to their cause, the 19th Amendment was adopted in 1920, essentially granting American women a constitutionally protective women's right to vote. After all their hard work and dedication, the women finally secured an active role in the United States.
Elizabeth Cady Stanton called the women's movement the greatest rebellion the world has ever seen. Historian Ellen Dubois stated that the ideals expressed in the Declaration of Sentiments, that all men and women are created equal, spoke powerfully to Americans and people all over the world because they reflected the universal ideals of human equality. Such ideals belong not only to Elizabeth Cady Stanton or one upstate New York village, they belong to Americans everywhere. Ultimately, they belong to the world. Women's rights today.
So how did the Seneca Falls Convention impact the women of today?
Women are working in all sorts of professional fields such as
Doctors,
Actresses,
Teachers.
entrepreneurs,
government representatives,
and countless other professions.
The possibilities and opportunities are endless.
When it comes to all the rights women have today,
it is because of the women of the past.
Iconic women like Lucretia Mott,
Elizabeth Cady Stanton,
and all the other women and men
That dedicated their lives
towards leveling the playing field for women.